Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good
Welcome to
morning, guys.
Friday.
Woohoo!
Nice and sunny in Chicago today.
Good.
That's awesome.
We
There
got
he
rain here
is.
today, so you'll probably get that tomorrow.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Check out Tractor Man's shirt. Holy
Nice.
yes.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, I got
Sweet.
goosebumps. Now there's four.
Yeah, that's four. Yeah.
There's four of us who own that shirt. I don't know who the fourth one is now, but thank you for
Nice.
sporting. Thank you.
That's pretty cool. All
Now,
right.
if you were on a John Deere tractor right now and out there farming, I'd be really stoked.
Why does it have to be John Deere? Why can't it be a red tractor?
Are you really getting that
Massey
woke
Ferguson.
on me?
You don't live in the Midwest, so you don't
I
understand.
don't. Whatever. Okay. I live in the South. There's no tractors
Yeah.
down here. There's just boats and seaweed.
Okay. All right, we'll get off the tractor kick for a little bit. Friday, it's June 6th, 81 years ago today. 156,000 Allied troops landed on the beaches of France. 4,000 of those troops did not make it through the day. So we always remember them on D-Day. That's where the liberation of Europe started. And that was only 18 years before I was born. So that was really strange. I figured that out this morning. Like, I didn't know I was that close to World War II, but I guess I am. Anyway, yeah, no kidding. Dow looks up. We have jobs report coming out, and I don't know that they've come out yet, but they're supposed to right about now. We'll see what happens with the markets. We could see
It
it
says
go either way, but right now, got it?
it says right on your headline right there, 139,000 in May, more
Oh,
than
it does.
expected.
Oh,
Unemployment was at 4.2%.
oh, okay. Well, there you go. Expected to increase 125, stayed at 4.2. That's still not very many. It's always interesting when you get into that, you see it either drop or go up, but the unemployment rate remains the same. I just haven't figured that out other than to get into the weeds and look at it a little bit. But all right, we'll see if that moves the market. Let's go back and take a look here.
If U.S. payrolls increased, would that increase things or cause a sell-off?
Well, right now we're just we're flat. I mean, we're the same as what we were before the report came out, at least on this one here. So we'll see what happens as we move through the day this morning. We'll keep an eye on it. I know Bob's monitoring it from New Jersey for us, so he's going to join on. I'm sure he'll have some commentary on that for sure. Let's go take a look. We got a lot to go through today. Actually, I actually took yesterday afternoon. We went and we saw the Mission Impossible movie. It's 3 hours long, but it was really had a lot of excitement in it, and a lot of action. So if you like that kind of stuff, it was a pretty entertaining and good movie, I thought, if you're into that series. SPY again, sideways. We're going to open, a little bit above where we were. Closed yesterday. We're still above the 9. We're just going sideways. We're above the 200. Got the Bollingers, second verse, same as this first. And we're still closing the Bollingers in, which as they get tighter, we just go straighter across the line here. We really aren't seeing much. I'm seeing a little bit of a dip down on the MACD. But again, we'll see what happens today, but it's just flat. Okay. Same here on the Dow. Okay, we just closed a little below the 200. I mean, we're just playing with the 200 right now, and then now sideways. It's just not that exciting in the indices. Here we are. The Qs have popped above the 200, but sideways since then, up against resistance, and just no catalyst yet. Not even the war between Trump and Musk has been able to move anything off of these indices. And then you get into the S&P, into the sectors. Here's communication sector, right up on on resistance. Look at the Bollinger Bands. Okay, that's communication sector. XLY. Again, right along the resistance level. This is the consumer discretionary. We've actually dropped down and bounced off the 200 on the XLY. XLF, financials, same thing, right along resistance, just sideways. I mean, it's hard, like Trent was talking yesterday, you look at the MACD, it's hard to find setups, other than what we found in those momentum stocks with sideways trading, because it just, you need times like these, but sometimes it just takes a while and we don't have that many real good swing trade setups. If we go into, some of the Mag 7, that spill up with Trump yesterday dumped. I don't know, not sure it did, but they had a big, tiff between Trump and Musk, and you see what happened to Tesla. It's going to open up a little bit today, but it dropped all the way down below the lower Bollinger, below the 50.
Tesla represented 26% of the move in the S&P 500 yesterday.
Wow.
So
okay.
There's really, if you look at that, there are only few stocks who can make that kind of impact on the index, and that would be Tesla and NVIDIA as of right now.
And when we look at NVIDIA, NVIDIA just, sideways right along resistance. We're going to open right above resistance. Look at the Bollingers. I mean, just the same kind of story on these big ones. So Tesla, like Trent said, was the big mover. You can look at Palantir. We've been watching that just sideways along resistance. I mean, look at this. Boom. Then sideways. Look how narrow the Bollingers are on Palantir. I mean, until something comes and moves this, it just, this indicates lack of volatility and just moving sideways. And you look down at the MACD and you see what's happening here. We're losing momentum. We're losing direction, trending. It's just slow on these, on the big stocks, and you see it into the sectors like I was showing you. We had some momentums, and that seemed to be where you're finding some momentum in the momentum stocks. CVNA, I know we talked about this at the earlier part of the week. Well, today the resistance level came on. You can see it had 2 days now. So, when we talked about where to get in, and this is kind of where we would have gotten in, 316.90 came up and it hit resistance yesterday and yesterday and the day before. Can it still go up? Yeah, you got some support or some sells above it. Typically, we see this, it might come up, but what happens when this resistance line comes on for the most part. So we're at 347. You got in at 316. That's a pretty good chunk of money. You might want to take some off just because of this. Not financial advice, but when this line comes on, that's a good sign for me to, kind of check out a little bit. We were watching Chewy. Again, these are the momentum stocks. Again, Chewy, look what happened. You got resistance 4 days in a row. Even though you've got upward moving averages, starting to see the rollover of the MACD. Again, wherever you would have gotten in on this might be a good place to take a little off the table and, enjoy your weekend. GEV is another one that you guys have been watching. If I can get this one to come up. Again, GEV, we came up sideways, popped up a little, and you'll see this once in a while it comes up right to where the sell orders are, and then we're right back down to resistance. You got this 9 coming up. We've seen that before where they skirts the resistance level and we start seeing the momentum drop off. You come down the oscillators, kind of confirm that we're going to see potentially this fall outside of the 9. Again, we've had patterns of sideways movement, so maybe this is a sideways movement, but resistance did come on. We'll see what happens today in GED. But if you have a good profit in it, and if you're not investing in it, you're trading it, you may want to take a little off the table. Enjoy your weekend, have a steak or a lobster, whatever's good for you guys. We talked about the jet engines, GE. Again, resistance came on today on General Electric. You start to see a little bit of a roll of the Bollinger Band. Then we talked about Rolls-Royce, which is the British company that does engines, which is RY. CEY, and I know Margaret got out of it yesterday, which was really kind of a good thing. I mean, we have some sideways, but again, we're seeing a downward. And this sideways movement, we're just sideways. We're kind of trending down. We're still over the 9 though. So technically you could still be in this, but then I come down, look at the oscillators. I'm like, okay, these are starting to roll a little bit too. So Margaret probably did a really good job of timing out at this, and she's happy with her profits, and we'll go and look for a new place to put those for their home. One that's kind of still doing kind of well is Raytheon. Raytheon is going to open a little bit higher, and you don't have any resistance. You do have some sell orders up at 141.51. It's had a nice 5-day upward kind of trend. Again, oscillators are not rolling like we're seeing others. So, it's a momentum stock. You got to be careful. It's playing between the 9 and, of course, the upper Bollinger right now. You're closer to the upper Bollinger than the 9. We always try to get in. I go back and look and see, where would be a good place, maybe right along this line here, which is right about where the 9 is. If you're going to get into this, maybe you'll do that. It's Friday. I don't like buying stocks on Friday because I have weekend risk, especially with the way news cycles are going right now. It's just not something I'm looking into, to buy on a Friday. I'm looking more to get rid of my swing trades on Fridays. RCL was on our watch list. This has been a nice one. Okay, once we got above the 200, we back tested the 200, and then it just rolled along the upper Bollinger, but we do have resistance right above at 174. So watch that today. Always have your stops in below, and keep your profits. And again, it's Friday. You may want to take some off if you were into Oracle. EQIX was another one. Oops, hold on. Again, this one got above the 200, came back tested it, but now we've come up with hit resistance. So that would have been a good time, at least from my plan, yesterday to set a sell limit right about, at resistance. You got really tight band above it where sell orders are. So it's a pretty good line of defense there as far as stopping your upward moment on Equinox, the REIT. We want to look at a couple of the earnings that came out yesterday. You can see what happens when earnings come out. This was Brown-Forman. I think they do whiskeys like Jack Daniels and stuff. Their earnings came out and then guidance and dropped it down. That's, again, I like to get out before earnings because of this. If I'm in a swing trade position, PVH, I think this is a clothing manufacturer. Earnings came out, again, dumped down right to support. Again, that's a big loss. I like to get out. However, on the other side, what you risk, and when you get out before earnings is, Dollar Tree came out in earnings and they popped up, So again, seems like it's either way up or way down when I trade. And if I have a profit, I'm running along this line and earnings is coming up, you get out before earnings, which in my trading plan would have got me out at this point on this day because it's before earnings. And again, here we come. And if you would have got out at the top, we got out at 96.72. I'm just speculating, and it closed at 96.67. So if you could get right back in, and you would actually be at a lower cost basis than what your profit was on Dollar Tree. So again, earnings, AVGO. I think this is down about 3%. We talked about this yesterday. Earnings came out. I think last time it was down about 3% in pre-market. We'll see where that goes. Lululemon, we had earnings yesterday. I think this one's down about 21%. They came out with guidance that's not doing so well. So that's one's going to be down quite a bit. I don't know where it's going to.
And that I didn't listen to the earnings call, but it could be a leading indicator to the high-end retail clothing markets.
Yeah,
so
definitely. Yeah, you're starting to see a little bit of crack maybe in the consumer spending area, which we have been seeing. CRWD, again, just trying to roll through some of these. CrowdStrike, it came out, earnings came out, came back down below. We're still below the 9. This one didn't drop, as much, but it still dropped after earnings, and it hasn't recovered back up to that point yet. UNH, we've been kind of watching this one, and this one just going to roll, slowly sideways right along right along support, and you see what's happening. The Bollingers are coming down, and if these guys come down, we could see a long run of sideways movement before we get movement on UNH. But again, keep it on the watch list, and we'll see what happens. It's interesting because you do have a MACD that's kind of rising, but it's a higher price stock, so your MACD might rise based on the day-to-day variation of price opening and closing, but nothing yet to see as far as anything I want to get into yet, but we'll keep it on the list. This one's kind of interesting. This is one of my favorites. Berkshire just keeps zooming down, and it's getting closer to that 200, and I'm really interested to see if it does one of these like it did last time, come down and touch it and then recover. But right now, we're outside of the Bollinger Band, 1, 2, 3 days. Usually you don't do any more than 4 or 5, you pull back in. So that would be almost about where the 200 is. So it'll be interesting to watch this pattern and see if we get a bounce off that 200. It might set up for a pretty good swing trade, or if it blows through the 200 for some reason, which is interesting because they have $350 billion in treasuries sitting out there. It's not like they're going underwater or they're losing money. But again, Warren Buffett did say he's going to step down at the end of the year. Maybe people are still worried about that. I think Patrick's stock, MELI, is going to break up a little bit today. I think I saw that in pre-market. We're coming down. We're starting to see the Bollingers. We'll see what happens. I like watching this stock. It's been sideways like the market for a long time. We'll see if it pops up and can stay up today. Applied, we were talking about Applied. People asked about Applied, and Applied just, took off. And yesterday, it actually, 2 days ago, it hit resistance, and yesterday it went up and almost hit where sell orders are, then came back down within below resistance. Again, you're outside the Bollinger Band. You're expected 1, 2, 3, 4, and expect that to pull back in within the Bollinger Band, right around resistance. So that was a nice run up on Applied. You may want to take a little profit off of that if you're a trader. If you're an investor, you got to look at your fundamentals and manage your risk on a stock like Applied. Lilly, another healthcare. We're watching this. Nice. We started watching this at the beginning of the week. Nice run up, but you're going to come up against not only the Bollinger, but the 50. And the 50 has been an area where it's stopped before, so go back and look. But again, Lilly had a nice run. If I'd have gotten in here, I might be thinking it's Friday. I've seen this little tail down to support. I may be wanting to take some of that off the table before the weekend too. And so one more, CRWV. I'm just going through the stocks we kind of looked at all week. So CRWV, Core Wave had a nice run up. Resistance came on, went above the Bollinger, came back down, closed below it. The resistance today, but back within the zone. So we'll see, but again, I don't like it when this line comes on, and that's where I might want to take a little off if I've ridden this up, because, don't be greedy, try to take your profits, enjoy your weekend. And then let's see if I had any more on here. Oh, App 11 has come up. This has been something we've been talking about. Again, it was come up. We've got resistance, and you've got sell orders right above resistance. Sell orders at 435, resistance at 426, and it's right where the Bollinger Band is. So again, we're seeing the same story we talked about, for the last 2 weeks. A lot of these stocks are coming up on resistance. We're seeing the indices flat, sideways, running along resistance, except for a couple of these momentums that we've seen. It's been pretty kind of boring in the market as far as swing trading goes. And that's what I got, Trent. It's all yours.
All right. So I'm going to take you through the 12 portfolio today, just give you a sort of explanation and what I'm seeing of the big market cap stocks and crypto. So for those who aren't familiar with what the 12 is, this is a representation of 7 of the top highest weighted market cap weighted equities in the S&P 500 and the highest market cap weighted cryptocurrencies out there. And every quarter or so I updated. So for instance, at the end of the quarter of first quarter, Tesla rolled out and Berkshire Hathaway rolled in. And What I see here is the sort of the line in the sand for this portfolio is the intermediate trend line, which is my 62 period moving average, which is a quarter of the number of trading days for equities, not crypto, equities. And that's my line in the sand. And as long as the stock price is trading above that, it has a intermediate term positive trend. And as you can see here, Berkshire Hathaway and Apple are my two. They're still trading below the intermediate trend line. The trade trend line is that 15 period moving average, and that is basically front running what the institutions use more of a 20-day moving average. And this gives me an indication of where a stock is trading above or below that trade, and gives me a leading indicator to where these stocks are headed. And recently, we've seen a lot of the crypto stocks are now trading below that 15 period moving average as the close of business last night, and that tells me we're starting to see that hitting of level of resistance on a short-term basis, but still above the intermediate trend line. When I look at it from a day-to-day standpoint, I calculate the volatility movement over a period of time, and it gives me a calculation of the low end range of the next day potential and the high end range potential. And as you can see yesterday, a lot of the equities were, except for two, Microsoft and Amazon, on the low end have a higher low, which is a positive, and in the case of Amazon, has a higher high potential. So when I'm looking at, say, Amazon here, what I'm seeing is that, one, we're above the intermediate trend line, we're above the trade trend line, that's all bullish, and our low end projection for the day being $199.11 potentially, and a high end potential of $215.14 is telling me that this stock is still inching higher each day. So that's from a day-to-day standpoint, that's a positive. We see that also with Ripple, we see that with Binance, and we see that Bitcoin. So this consolidation we have seen sort of in Bitcoin, as we can see, it's been trading below the 15, but above the intermediate. So it gets a full allocation, and full allocation in this portfolio is 8% max. And as we get closer to these high-end numbers on a day-to-day, you can see that it changes the scoring. And for instance, here, when I look at Amazon, it reduces the allocation because we're getting more to the top end of it. And this changes on a day-to-day, but minimum allocation, we always have 1% invested because we don't know when markets are going to change, as we've seen over the last couple of weeks. But when I look at NVIDIA is one I focus on a lot, as a lot of you know. Its range based on today's calculations, has a low end of $129.82 and a high end of $147.37, and closed out yesterday at $139.99. So it's got a potential in today of a low end of losing 7.83%, but a potential increase of 5.01% from its projected highs for today. And what that tells me is the closer I get to my highs, the less potential upside I have. And when I get further away from my lows, there's more per percentage in an intraday or on a daily basis of a low end. So if you're looking at this as I am, I'm looking at this going, I want to see higher highs and higher lows on a day-to-day basis. I want to see that the stock trades above the intermediate trend, that's bullish, and it's trading above the trade trend. And right now, NVIDIA, Microsoft, and Meta, as well as Amazon, are all meeting those requirements. So I'm bullish in that case, even though we saw some intraday, or saw it on a daily basis, a lower low and lower high in NVIDIA, as well as a couple of these others. So right now, what I'm seeing is a lot of the crypto stuff, actually all of the crypto stuff on a short-term basis, is trading below that 15, which tells me that we could see over the next coming 5 days, crypto is continuing to inch down, unless some change, some headline or some market flow or valuations of value are come into play in the next 24 hours, or actually 72 hours. But I anticipate we could potentially see sort of a slowing in crypto, in these cases, this 5. When it comes to Berkshire and Apple, as long as we're trading below that intermediate trend line, in this portfolio allocates 1% until that changes. And what I want to see today, and Mark pointed it out on the Berkshire chart, was that candlestick there indicates potentially a pivot. It's outside the Bollinger Band. It could move higher. Now, what I want to see today, when everything updates tomorrow morning, is that I have a higher high and a higher low on an intraday basis. And I start to see this percentage to the high side on a daily basis start to increase, and that low end start to decrease. And so that gives me a bottoming in Berkshire. So from a standpoint of intermediate intermediate term investing, I'm looking at this going, okay, I'm now starting to see volatility is still below 19. Fantastic. It does have a high end of 19.9 today, but the low end is more on the 16.44 range. So, as of right now, volatility is starting to slow, and we're starting to go down. So that means markets potentially will drift higher, and that's good for more of the intermediate to long-term investor. For those who are day trading or swing trading, that volatility is subsiding, and that means your potential movement in those stocks is going to be suppressed as well. So from a long-term and intermediate term, volatility is in the positive for us, whereas for the short term and day trader kind of approach, volatility is actually working against us. So overall, something I'm working on is doing a back test of historical year-to-date and year returns on this. And what this portfolio is to do is, one, get you exposure to the where money is flowing. And remember, the biggest contributor to the market every month is the 401k market. And that is that contribution everybody makes. And every large cap growth stock has these 7 stocks in it. And when money goes in there, we consistently see that flow of money going into large cap growth, which historically is where everybody puts their money. And you're going to, as long as that flow continues to be positive, your chances are you're going to see markets continue to rise higher. The time when that gets interrupted, when the employee walks into HR and says, quit contributing, and a big majority of the country does that, that's when you're going to see markets really lose momentum. And we saw that during the dot-com bubble. We saw that during the great financial crisis. We didn't really see it during the pandemic because it was such a short-term period of time. But right now, that money is still flowing into that big bucket of money is still flowing into markets. So overall, I'm very bullish, even though we've seen some pullback and some consolidation. But overall, things are looking good. And as long as volatility still is below 19, expect just this floating upwards. And that's good for the intermediate to long-term investor. For the swing trader and for the day trader, volatility is your friend. So that you want volatility in your world, but we're not seeing it right now. And we're seeing market makers are still neutral when it comes to hedging their books, when it comes to the options market. So that's the 12, and very positive overall. I'm very excited about that. But as we can go into the weekend, we could definitely see things really change. And that's where you have to risk manage. That's where you put your trailing stops in. That's where you manage that downside risk and determine what kind of investor you are. And I think that's very important as we go into this weekend. So let's open up to the floor. Any questions, ideas? European report, Patrick, can you chime in here for us?
Yeah, the FT100, it's on a bull run at the moment on steroids with all the interest rate cuts. There's been 11.5% increase in its over the last 8 weeks.
It's interesting, yeah, because I think that's your seventh cut in a row. You know, it went down 25
Yeah,
basis points, and the Fed is still sitting on their hands here in the United States.
yeah. Well, I think maybe is it your fellow chap called Powell? Is it? Well,
Yes.
he's a bit
Yep.
ultra cautious. He's worried about inflationary pressures of this big beautiful bill, which they reckon it'll cause a $2.4 trillion dollar deficit.
It's interesting with him. He's kind of a cheeky fellow, that Powell, because I'm trying to speak British to help you, you know. But he, you know, he always says that he's based on data, you know, on facts and data. But if he's worried about the big wonderful bill, that hasn't happened yet. So I mean, then he's just speculating instead of actually using the data like he always says in every one of his speeches. So he's confusing me.
That's what the FT over here reckons the cost of that bill will be at the moment.
You want the job numbers?
Drop out the politics before you make a statement like
Go ahead, Mike.
you're making an analysis. No politics. You look at it objectively. Your statements are all political. Who cares what the FT says? They've been wrong. With most,
but nobody else has quantified it in any precise detail. Nobody
it's not done.
Sorry?
Not done.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is the bill as it stands has the potential to lose that amount, and that's what has been quantified as by You're not an economist, nor am I. I'm just quoting from what they said.
I am actually.
Are you?
Yes.
Okay, well then I defer to your where did you get your economics degree in? Well, what university?
I got mine. Patrick, I got mine.
That's his
I
economic
got it in the
degree.
field.
Was it
I got
This is the guy
I got mine at
who
the
was in the
University of
trenches.
Nebraska.
Was that the University of Life you got it in? Is that what you're
No, no, buddy, I didn't. I got my degree going part-time to school, okay?
saying? Oh, good. That's
All right, and I also worked on Wall Street for 30 fucking years.
oh, well, that's good.
I think, you know, depending where you get your news, I've been noticing that your news, Patrick, is a lot different, and it has a different scale and spin than our news on this side of the pond. And I would expect that. There's just different viewpoints, whether you're on the continent, you know, of Europe or you're on the continent of North America. You know, we're seeing different views. I think that when you look at Powell, I think there's a lot of politics involved in what Powell does. I don't understand what the hell he's doing, you know, and I don't think he does. And I lost all faith in him when he did the whole transitory, you know, inflation is transitory. I'm like, and I do have a degree in economics from a land grant, Big Ten University. I don't understand what he's doing. It has to be politics for Powell, in my opinion, and what he does.
Yeah, I've got one stock for you, Mark. It's called United States Antimony Corporation.
What's your symbol?
UAMY.
United States Antimony. What is this little jewel?
It's to do with precious metals.
So that stock saved me a couple of days ago. I made huge on that stock. And I got out just in time yesterday, right before it came down, which I was thanking the God above.
Look where it hit. It hit right on resistance and right on the upper Bollinger and then came back down. So you did good.
All mining stocks went up yesterday.
Let's look at, I was like, you know, steel was a big deal. You know, US Steel did that huge candle, and ever since then, you know, it's been waiting for the 9 to come up and hit, and we still haven't done anything but roll right along resistance on US Steel. Cleveland Cliffs, you know, another steel company. These guys were in the doghouse until, you know, they came out with the US Steel deal and the tariffs, but it still can't get past the 50. You know, 4 days of hitting that. So, yeah, I mean, day to day, we're seeing variations day to day on just about everything, you know, and it just where the money flows. for me, the market structure is broken because we're news based on everything, and and you can see it in the charts, and you can see it in, the indice charts are just sideways, and then if you get a runner, you have a runner.
Look at ORLA. They're in mining. And they, well,
Okay, here we go. Okay, so
there's a hot sector. It might be a place to keep on your radar. I certainly have. I'm just pointing out all the miners are doing really well, and this is one of the top dogs. So that's why.
Okay. Yeah,
And it has doesn't it have a lot to do with where gold sits? I mean, if gold's in demand, they're in demand.
Gold's been pretty sporadic. You can see, it's.
Well, I think of the precious metals that are needed for the AI hit. So all the copper all or so anything that's used for building that infrastructure, which is from construction all the way to the product.
Copper took a bounce up, came back down the Bollinger Band yesterday. Also, silver, we looked at that yesterday. Oops, come on, silver. Now, let me go out year to date. Silver. It'll come up 1 year. There we go. So silver came up, hit a pretty good high up there. What are we at? We hit up 32.78 for a high yesterday, right about where we're seeing the sellers accumulate, right up there. So it looks like we're going to open a little bit higher today on silver. So again, outside the Bollinger Band, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, you got to watch these runners because they can come back on you, with a vengeance. We've seen that before.
Did you guys touch base on CRCL, the Circle Internet Group that's coming out with that? I think it's related to stable coins and so forth.
What's the symbol on that
just
one?
went public.
Yeah, CRCL. It's only 1 day. You're not going to see anything technical, but it's just pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
There it is.
But think about digital stable coin.
Guys, I'm all in. Yeah, I'm selling everything. I'm going into Circle Internet Group Class A. Actually, I'm not. So don't follow my lead on that one. I was just joking. Okay. No, there's gonna be a lot. You're gonna see a lot of, I think you're gonna see a lot of more collaboration between crypto type world and the AI type world. I really believe that. I think they're gonna be tied together at some point. And I haven't figured out how and why yet, but I just have that feeling. My opinion only. Bob, what's going on in Jersey? Anything?
Nothing really. Got the jobs numbers this morning. 139,000 jobs created. Estimate was 125. Revision of down 95 for the last report. So it came in 147, not 197, whatever it was at that time.
Right.
The most interesting part is that the work week is only at 34.6 hours worked, not 40, and it seems to be holding there. I think that's the third report on that. And unemployment stands at 4.2%. And the unders, 60-day unders is 7.8. So
that's a U6,
doesn't
right?
seem to be a real issue in the job market yet. And most of it is 78,000 in healthcare, leisure, and hospitality. 48,000. Warehousing went up 6,000, and then some other areas of small gains, but that's majority of it. Nothing in manufacturing.
Yeah,
Hey, Mark,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead. Can you check out FCX Freeport? I think it is Freeport Macaroni.
Yeah. Let me write this down. I got another one for JOBY too, so I'm gonna write this down so I don't. Okay, hold on.
I'm in that.
JLBY. Someone asked about this in the chat. Had a nice run up. Now we're back down below the 9 and we hit resistance. Kind of a nice gap up. It looks like we could come back down and fill the gap. Again, nothing that excites me at this point. You're seeing them. Look at the MACD is decelerating. Just not something I'm looking at. FCX, you said? No, what was the one you wanted?
FCX. I mean FCX.
That's Invesco Currency.
F Frank
Oh,
Charlie
FCX.
X-ray.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Oh, there you go. Yeah, nice jump above both the Bollinger Band and the 200. I always like to see if it, back tests that and keeps going. The oscillators are looking fairly decent on that one too. But again, you got sell orders of, let's see, 43.57, and right above it's a resistance. So a little bit of room to roll. But again, I always like to back test the 200, but it's nice to see it over the 200. What else we got? Anything else on the chart here? Let me come and look.
Roadblocks.
I'm gonna look here. Margaret asked, "Do you sell Berkshire B if it goes below the 200?" So I guess it's up to you guys. If you're following, it would have to substantially go below the 200, and it depends on my cost basis. I have some really long-term Berkshire Hathaway shares from like when it started Berkshire B. So I'm in no hurry to sell those off and take any kind of tax hit on some of those. If I were, if I were trading, definitely if it went under the 200, and if I were following Paul Tudor Jones and I got in to Berkshire when it went over the 200, and then that was my line in the sand, then definitely if it went under the 200, that's where I'd get out and I'd wait for it to go back above the 200 because that would be my process. Okay. With me, I have a long-term Berkshire. I'm not trading per se on my investment account. It's long-term. I'm not going to, Berkshire's way up over what I have a cost basis on. If I were trading it, and I do trade Berkshire, let me put Berkshire up here. BRKB. This time I'll remember to put it up for you guys, so I'm not talking to myself.
Mark,
If I was trading,
interested.
go ahead.
I'm interested in purchasing some Berkshire for a long term. Would
Okay.
you let us know when you think it's a buying opportunity for long term? Would you be able to tell us that?
Well, I think that all you're asking for now is at what point should I get in because I want to be a long-term Berkshire shareholder.
Exactly.
So if you were if you wanted to do the Paul Tudor Jones, let's say it's the 200. Here's the 200 right here, okay? And we're coming down to it. I'm going to go out longer. Let's go 5 years. You would have, let's see, you would have gotten in. So you wouldn't be trading it that much, Damon. Like, see right here, you would have gotten in at the 200 here.
Okay.
And that was November of 2022, and you basically would still be in it today, 2025.
Yeah. Okay.
Now you can use that as that's a simple line in the sand, long term, gets you out of these kind of things here, where it comes down. Let me go a little further back here. Yeah, see, it kind of went down. Here's where it started, but it kind of went down. Keeps you out of those. Let me go back here. I'm going to go to the 1 year. And the other way I look at it for me, Damon, is if I can get this thing, is the weekly. And on the weekly, I like to go when it's above the 50-week moving average. Okay, so this is the 50-week moving average. We're on the weekly chart now for more of an investment kind of look. You can see the 50 on the weekly is way above the 200-week moving average. But you would have gone, okay, right? If you would have gotten out maybe right in here, depending on how purist you are. But if you would have got in when it did a full candle above the weekly, you would have got in 2023 instead of 2022, like on the 200, and you would have gotten in around 308.77. And you just kind of, and again, this is just one way people do it on the longer term, and you're still above it. You're seeing downward trends on the weekly, but you still haven't hit it, and this is at 472.46 if that was your line in the sand,
Okay.
so you would still be in that. So you can either use the 200-day or the 50-week as two simple ways of on the long-term investment. That's how I do it. You don't have to do it that way, but you can
Sounds
see
good.
how long you're in it. You don't have to be trading in and out. You're certainly not swing trading it, on those kind of.
Oh,
And
To
Mark-
answer
good.
yeah,
Thanks.
go ahead.
Mark, when we used to build portfolios for clients, we used more of a core satellite approach to it. And when you look at Berkshire, it's the diversity in that business, and it covers all different sectors. So it covers transportation, it covers retail, it covers, consumer staples, discretionary, and that kind of thing. And I think when you're building energy, all that, when you're building a core holding that you're going to hold forever, looking at the diversity within the company is definitely what, my first thing I would take a look at. And Berkshire sort of it checks all those boxes. Whereas if you're looking at NVIDIA or a Tesla as a core holding, you have to ask yourself, how many sectors does it cover today, but also covers in the future? And, and there's arguments for every company, but you have to take that in account when it comes to the sort of that core holding. And Berkshire, in my opinion, is one of those companies that checks that box overall.
Yeah, I mean, it is for me because of everything you just said. Plus, they have a history of average returns since they started in 1963 of 19% a year. Okay.
Yeah.
That's better than you're going to see. I mean, I think the S&P is what, 12, 10?
12. Yeah.
So
Actually, I think it's lower now.
Probably, but that's why I like it. And so what you're asking, Pam, is when should I get in? Well, technically, if you're looking at from what Trent just said, you could get in at any time.
Right.
But, well, not technically. Fundamentally, you can get in at any time. Technically, you could wait and see if it hits the 200 and starts bouncing back up, or, what it does with the 50. But I like it personally. It's a core holding for me. It doesn't have to be for anyone else. But they're certainly not going out of business, okay, because they are such a huge conglomerate. Not only do they own companies outright, they own companies that make campers, companies that make houses. They own Mid-American Electric. They own,
Dairy Queen, Brooks Shoes.
Yeah. I mean, they own just a ton of.
And most importantly, who's the underwear company? I mean, For the Loom. I mean, that is just a staple in American, society. I mean,
Patty Whitey's.
Is it true that he sold the Vanguard ETF? Is that right?
Yeah, he sold the S&P index fund. Yep.
Yeah,
He
it's
sold
pretty
that
big news.
quite a ways back. He sold that. We talked about it.
Oh,
probably last quarter before. Yeah, before his
Within March.
meeting.
March.
Okay. Yeah. Julian, what
Mark.
do you got?
Yeah, when we see the Joby again, I want to just
Joby.
check. Thinking that I
Okay.
have.
Okay, hold on.
Yes, thank you.
Hold on. Let me pull it back up.
Mhm.
Here we go. This is a weekly chart. Let me go to a daily. But you see
Okay.
weekly, look at weekly. I mean, if you're longer term, you're looking at a weekly. There's a lot of, what I see on this,
Mhm.
look at these candlesticks, it goes up and then it gets beat down. It goes up, it gets beat down. You see quite a bit of this just on the top side. And these are big candlesticks too. But on a weekly, you got above the 50. And if you use that philosophy, it would have worked for you, so far. If we go to the
Yeah.
daily,
Mhm.
and I don't know anything about this company, fundamentally, if you go to the daily,
They
you see, you're above the
yeah they
200.
yeah they don't have earning yet, but they sign up like a two agreement with Toyota and for 750 million, and another agreement with a Saudi Arabia company for 1 billion.
Okay.
So, well, yeah, the analysts are bullish in that. Um, but I was thinking, for example, in the last six candles, it's like the price bounce in 732, and after that go up, and now we are like down again. And I don't know
Yeah.
if it's a good point to think that the price is going to bounce in 730 cent, like was the last low.
You think it's going to bounce at 730? You think?
Yeah, yes. Like it's actually 3 days ago was the SMA 9. Uh
So if
yeah,
you
the
did
analyst.
bounce at 730, that would be right underneath the 20. So the 20 is the next level of support, and that's
Okay.
at 735. So you're talking about bouncing underneath. I come down, I'm kind of looking at the oscillators and the momentum. It's interesting to look at a chart like this because you see smaller candle patterns through here, and
Hmm.
then you see kind of a little bit of chop, and then a lot of chop, and then you see a gap.
Yeah,
And I
that
was
was
just
the catalyst about the
yeah,
agreement.
I was going to
Uh,
come back just a little further. So people who bought in here maybe down and then started to come back up and then had this home run hit on this gap here.
mm-hmm.
Some of these people made it take a lot of profit, which is why you're seeing what you're seeing here. That it goes up and it gets beat back down. Okay, I'm taking my profit. And then it comes down here, it goes up. I'm taking my profit. And that's how gaps get filled too. You see, we're halfway through this gap coming back down. We'll see what happens. I'm not familiar with this company. Let's see how many shares we trade. 21 million. Okay, so you got a lot of volume. So um, is it something that I would jump into at this point? Not it doesn't meet my trading plan, but that doesn't mean
Okay.
that doesn't mean you have more knowledge and fundamentally you're going to do it long term. And again, the weekly chart looked better than the daily chart for sure.
Okay. And can we see Omex? It's another company under $1, but they have a conference on June 17.
What's the symbol?
It's OMEX.
Okay, this is a
Uh,
penny stock kind of deal. Odyssey Marine
yeah,
and Exploration, right?
yeah. They are going to have a conference in June 17, and they are going to talk about a new agreement the earnings going up.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know if it was a good entry point at 0.88, but I just want to know your thoughts.
I don't know anything about it. I see it's going to hit the 200. And look, we've played with the 200 before a lot. See it all the
Okay,
way. So
okay.
it would have to get past that, and then right above that, you've got some resistance at $1.11. And again, you're playing with, I call it penny stocks because you're under $1 for sure. Um, it's nice you're seeing the oscillators might be coming up a little bit. They're not there yet on the MACD. You have a crossover on the stochastic a little bit, and then you've got some momentum because of the last 3 days. Came down, you see you've hit the 50 several times, and then you've come down, you hit the 50, but then you've always had trouble at the 200, for a while. So if you can get above that, you're at 94 cents, and you got up to about $1.11 to the next level. Again, you're seeing your Bollingers are pretty close together. They're not spread. So I don't trade penny stocks a lot. These kind of stocks here, you see a lot of day traders get in and move them around. And I don't know anything about the company, Julian. So you know
Hmm.
more about that. So it's, you got to decide are you a trader or are you an investor on this particular stock, you know, and
Yeah.
play it that way, because you don't want to be trading your investments all the time. Especially if you're in a non-tax advantaged account, you're going to be taxed to death on it. And you want to make sure that your trading mentality is separate from your investment mentality. Like for Berkshire Hathaway, I have a long-term investment in Berkshire, but I like to trade it too. But then there are two separate philosophies and two separate accounts for me on how I do that.
Can you
Okay,
take
and
a,
Mark, the last question. When I think in the MACD and the stochastic, which is the difference between two of them? It's one is better than another one, or they are different?
Slow stochastic, I only use it because it gives me a preliminary indication of where I think the MACD is going to go. And the MACD is really a convergence divergence. It's when you see basically the 9 crossover the K level of the MACD. So it tells you the change in direction and trending of a stock. But again, it goes backwards based on the moving averages. So when you see a positive crossover, okay, let me show you here. Let me just go. All right, let me put something up here. Okay, so right here on Berkshire, you see the MACD is made up of the 12, the 26, and the 9, the moving averages. Okay, that's how I have mine set up. So when you see a crossover to the positive, you can see what happens to the stock price.
Right.
And then when you see it come to the negative, and some people just trade off the MACD, you see what happens. Okay. And so some people just use the MACD as a trade symbol. Okay, so look here, we crossed right here. And that's when it crossed over the 9. See, you got the 9 right here as part of that. And it's not crossed back over in the positive sense. Okay, and you see downward trending. We haven't reversed our trend yet. When the MACD, make it a little bigger. When the MACD starts to curve back up and sideways and up, you know, and starts to trend back, and you see these histograms start to go back up. Okay, that's when you see a trend of your stock price go up. And I just use the stochastic as kind of an indicator, a pre-indicator of what's going to happen. And this, you can't see it very well here, but you can see, you know, at some point when the stochastic moves over, that later you see the MACD move over. So it kind of gives me, not always, but a lot of times, an indication that I'm going to see a turnaround in price direction. So that's how I use that.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Yep. All right, Trent, did you have something?
RBLX,
BLX?
R,
Oh, Roblox.
B.
Okay. Roblox. Another momentum trade. Yeah, we've had this one on a list too. Like, other than it doesn't have resistance, you do have some sell orders at 96.37. But on these, I like it when you come down, you can pick it up on support, and you know it just goes between support and resistance, and until it goes out of one of those two, you know you got a nice upward trend on Roblox. So what do you want to do here? Are you going to buy up here? You know, I would rather, if once we crossed back here, you know, you're over the 200, you crossed the 9, you made it past the 50, and then you just roll up that 9. This would have been a good, really good swing trade to catch in. You know, on my trading plan, it would have been right in this area where you got in, let's just say 59.71, and you wouldn't have been knocked out until you're still in, you know, 57.96. So that's a nice run on that one. All right, we're at 8:30. Anything else? All right, that was a long day. Let's see. Got 7 new messages. I'm trying to see. Great weekend. Scott's off. Roblox. Yeah, we did. We actually, okay, Roblox. Okay, it appears to be reset for Berkshire investors during the Buffett retirement. Yeah, kind of. I think by the middle of 3 years, Q1 26 earnings, investors see a bright future. I think like Trent said, Berkshire has a bright future anyway. You can just go back to its history, and it's just one of those stocks that I think personally everybody should probably have. And when I help younger people start out in their accounts, when they want to start investing, it's always the first share I buy for everybody, or suggest that they buy, so that the first share that they've ever owned is a Berkshire Hathaway share, and they can go to the meeting and they can tell all their friends, I'm a Berkshire Hathaway owner. At least in this area, it's a big deal.
I think the only thing in that case is management change.
But
If
they've
there's
been
a
doing
major shift.
But they've been doing that. He's been in there
I
for
know,
20
I
some
know.
years. Yeah.
But that aside, whenever you look at a company, you take a look at the management. I mean, when you see management, I mean, hell, Apple is a prime example of that. When Steve Jobs was ousted, what happened to Apple?
That's
When
two
Steve
different
Jobs came
things.
back in, what happened?
That's two,
What's
that's
happening
two.
to Apple today?
I mean, that's two different things in my opinion, because Abel, who's going to take over, he's been an assistant coach and a trading guy for 10 years now under Buffett. Buffett has brought him up, and Buffett's not going away unless he passes away,
Right.
which I hope he doesn't.
Yeah.
So I think he's not going to hand the keys over to someone who's just going to totally radically change the success story of Berkshire Hathaway. And I don't think
think it's
there's
something you have to look
long-term.
at when you look at companies.
Yeah, I agree, but I
Investments.
mean I've been in this a long time, so I
Sure.
feel like part of the family of Berkshire, and I've been watching them for my entire adult life.
Right.
And I just don't see him as handing over the keys to the jewels without an understanding of how to run it. And like
Sure.
Abel
No, I agree.
said, at the Berkshire meeting, he's like, why would I screw with success? The playbook is here,
Yeah.
but you're right.
Yeah.
He could have an epitome and change, but we'll see.
Or he could be abruptly gone.
But yeah, well, you got to remember, he has to answer to the board of directors, and the board of directors have been there a long time under Buffett.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyhow, yeah.
Whew, wow, I'm exhausted,
Something.
guys. I don't know about you guys. I do like that morning Ed shirt that Tractor Man has on. That's nice. So he's the envy of his field, I'm sure.
I like his hat. So
I do too. I'm gonna wear mine next week. I haven't worn mine in a long time, so I'm gonna. It's summertime. I can get my straw hat out now. So,
yeah.
all right. So we got anything else? I'm looking at everybody. Good weekend. Thank you guys. Any closing words?
I think as always have a process, have a risk management process. Most importantly, as we go further into the summer, and headlines will be a big driver, but also just don't get emotional about this and take as I wrote this morning in what the newsletters, take some time away from this because it can really jack with your brain. Um, get away from it, get away from your phone, quit looking at it for a while, for at least take 24 hours not to think about it.
Go
I
Be
went
crank that
better
to,
off in your
barbecue
long
pit
term.
up.
like I said,
There you go. Start
I
your
went to
barbecue pit up.
I went to Mission Impossible yesterday. It was a nice afternoon.
Yeah. So take some time for yourself. Go ride a horse or
Horse.
something.
Yeah, Margaret will do that.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you all again for your
Thank you.
support. And
Good deal, guys.
as I always used to tell two friends about us.
Live
Tell,
down.
share your experience with them. I appreciate that. All right, y'all have a good weekend. Take
Yep.
care, and
You guys are great.
Bye.
live loud.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.